Welcome, everyone, to episode 128 of Rangers Ed, presented by Lucarelli Law. If you're in Florida and need a lawyer, call Lucarelli Law and tell them the boys at Rangers Ed sent you. This is your host, Cousin Ed. We are back this week, unwillingly, but here. I'm with my co-host, Little Ed. What's up, bud? How you doing?
How we doing, fellas? A little under the weather this week, but I'm going to try and fight through it. And I apologize if I cough or sneeze or anything unexpectedly. But as usual, I'm going to mute myself and forget to unmute myself many times. So we'll see how that
goes. That's Coach Ed over there. What's up, Coach?
What's going on, fellas?
Not much, man. We got a lot to talk about.
Not much happiness in Rangers.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about for sure, but I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. Listeners out there, I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving with your families and friends, and everyone got a little bit of a break from work, hopefully. This is a good time of year for that. December comes around, a little more resting, a little more watching hockey. Unfortunately, for us, the Rangers, not so much, but not so fun to watch. But, we got a lot to do, so let's just jump right into it.
Speaking of not so much fun to watch, Coach, what was your experience like a little bit at the Garden last night?
God.
You had more patience than I did. You stuck it through the whole game.
I'm glad you stopped me and brought this up.
Luckily, I didn't go because, I know I mentioned I'm sick, but my head I could barely watch it on TV. My head.
I don't know how you stayed. I give you credit. A lot of credit for Coach.
Well, we wanted to stay just to see if there was going to be a good fight or something, but obviously, the way the Rangers are, there wasn't even that. That's the sad part about it. There was no life. Watching it live I just can't even fathom the locker room or what's going on. It's incredible. They didn't play. As stupid as it sounds, they didn't play horrible. I think. The crowd was never into it. Whenever anything came up on the board, like to clap and make noise, how they always do those things, nothing, zero. So that makes it even worse. There's no cheering going on. Only the one goal, obviously. Crowd's not into it. The Devils fans were more into it. There weren't that many of them, but you heard cheering, and it was tough. It was very tough. I didn't have a good feeling going to the game. I said to my buddy Joe, I'm like, this is going to get ugly before it gets pretty. I just didn't see it. I just didn't see the Rangers playing them tough. I just didn't see it. I didn't see them keeping up with the speed.
Yeah, particularly right now, you were there live, Coach. So, we'll get into more specifics in a few, but what player stood out to you maybe as what the hell is this guy doing out there? And I know you're going to say Miller, but who?
It was a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a lot. I can't even. I'm just watching the game, and the Rangers are just skating around, and they couldn't keep up with the speed, the flow of what the Devils were doing. They were just lost defensively. And fans, keep in mind when analysts say defensively, they don't just mean the defensemen. Pay attention because they went on a lot today on NHL Network about the game, and it's just team defenses. They're just lost. For a team of veterans, they're not a young team anymore. They're lost.
Yeah, they're gonna have to figure something out. But all right, we got a lot to go over. Let's jump into the jersey profiles. Sponsored by Oscar's Pro Stitch Hockey. Tomas Sandstrom, number 28. I chose Tomas Sandstrom for a specific reason. He did score 40 goals in a season with the Rangers, which, not many Rangers have done. So that's one reason. But the other reason is, as some of you know who listen to this podcast, there's this alleged jersey curse that I have. I say alleged because, if you believe in that kind of stuff. And really, the jersey curse derives not from my dad, but from my mom, who became a fan through my dad in the 80s, and her first jersey was a Tomas Sandstrom jersey. And then he was traded within a year for Bernie Nichols. And her next jersey was John Van Beesbrook. who was then subsequently let go in the expansion draft to the Panthers.
And Tara's the root of it all for sure.
So I think it's I inherited it.
Well, if I remember correctly, Phil Esposito was GM when Sandstrom was there, and he had labeled like Sandstrom being the only untouchable Ranger at the time. And he didn't make the trade, I don't think. It had to be Neil Smith, right?
I don't know who made the trade. It was right before, a year before they got Messier. Look, Nichols was a great player, 100-point scorer. I think he had like 60, 70 goals a couple of times. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, but not with the Rangers.
No, with the Kings. So then they trade two young guys, Sandstrom and Granato, for him. They go on to have really good careers elsewhere, of course. And then Nichols just turns into Mark Messier. So in a way, the Sandstrom trade turned out okay for the Rangers, right? So you can look at it like that, I guess. But he was a pretty good player. He had 173 goals in 6 years with the Rangers. That's almost a 30-goal pace per season. So, just one of those not unknown, but unsung, I guess, guys who started their career with the team, drafted by the team, did well, but obviously they moved on from him before he entered his prime and, played with he also, I thought it was interesting. He's one of a handful of guys to be teammates with both Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. Paul Coffey's the most notable one, but he's one of like a select few guys. So that's an interesting little tidbit as well.
Did he win a cup with Pittsburgh?
No, he went to Pittsburgh. He went to LA while Pittsburgh was winning cups. Then he went.
Pretty sure he was on the Kings when they went to the finals.
Yes,
with Gretzky.
Yes, I think that's right. And then he went to Pittsburgh after that. So he didn't win a cup with Pittsburgh, but good player. But all right, let's get into the current Rangers because there's a lot to do here. Prior to the last episode, the Rangers were 12-6-1. Since then, they went 1-4-0, 13-10-1 on the year, 27 points, still fourth in the Metro, 10th in the NHL. Or maybe they dropped there. That might be wrong. But they started out home against St. Louis, a loss 5-2. Shesterkin in net for that one. Then they lose to Carolina on the road 4-3. They lose to Philadelphia on the road 3-1. Back home, a 4-3 win against Montreal. I mean, very luckily, a 4-3 win against Montreal and then a 5-1 loss to New Jersey. So they had a losing streak here. I think it reached 5 games. They're 1-6 in their last 7. 5 straight. Then they break the streak in the final seconds. You think, all right, maybe this will turn it around. They got a key divisional game a couple of days later at home against New Jersey, a team that's played 4 more games. And if the Rangers win, it's a 4-point swing. Could be a really impactful game, and they get blown out on home ice. I mean, can we talk about this, just the losing streak in general? It's been a few years since the Rangers have run into this kind of a rut. And I was just curious, Coach, like, what do you think caused this? Number one, there's a lot of debate about this, so I'm going to just posit a couple things to you. Number one, is this a symptom of how they played all season and it's like the chickens are coming home to roost, Bobby Boucher? Is it like one of those things? Or is it
without getting into coach's corner, which is later, they said it pretty plainly from what I've been seeing. It's Igor's been playing like an average goalie, and it's just exposing all the Rangers' shortfalls. In the beginning of the season, when they were doing well in the standings, we were talking about it. So was everybody else. They're letting up 50 shots, 40 shots, 35 shots, and they're getting outshot, and they're still winning because Igor was standing on his head. Now he's become more average in the last few games for him, and they just can't keep up. He's not making that big save. I mean, he made the save against Hughes on the breakaway last night, kind of kept him in the game. That was a big turning point. But other than that, then it was just lights out. They showed no life. They should have showed life after that, and they didn't. So
I guess my question is this more of what they have, how they have been playing all year, and now the goaltending has regressed, Is that what you're saying, or do you think they're
Yes.
playing worse?
Probably a little worse because now it's getting in their head. Ironically, Zibanejad is putting some points on the board in these last few games, and they're still everybody else isn't. I mean, Panarin was kind of invisible for these losses.
Yeah. I mean, little Ed, Valaket said last night that the Rangers looked like they had the yips. You think it's a little bit of that, like getting in their head, like Coach is saying?
I think it's definitely gripping the stick a little too tight. I mean, obviously all the media floating around the Rangers, but at the same time, I don't want to look at that as an excuse because there's always negative media floating around the Rangers. I mean, that's just what you sign up for, playing for an original six, a high market team like New York. I mean, the fans demand perfection or excellence, whatever you want to call it, and that's not what we're getting as fans, or as as crazy as it seems, like we're just spoiled by last year, I think. And I said it on last week's episode, is like we were expecting last season to continue on into this season, and it's just not happening. So hopefully they're able to just get past it, but right now it's not looking that way.
I mean, I think it's more than that, though. I mean, last year they won the President's Trophy. They had timely goals. They had great goaltending for most of the season. So yeah, that's not happening this season. I agree with that, but this team might not make the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, to go from this isn't just like it's not a continuation of last year. I mean, they're like closer to last place than they are first place. I mean, they're a bubble team right now. They're falling further and further away from that third spot in the Metro Division. It's past Thanksgiving. We're getting into the Christmas time. It's time for the team to start winning games. And I mean, I don't see like anything that tells me that this team is good. I know they have good players, but I don't see a fight. I don't know. I feel like earlier in the year, Coach, I got to disagree. They were buzzing. They were scoring goals. They started the year with like a 6-0 win or something. They were putting pucks in the net offensively. Maybe the defensive structure was poor for most of the year, but they were scoring. Now they're not. They're not scoring. Lafreniere has 1 assist in his last 5 games, -6. That's not good. He signed that extension. Where'd he go, right? Like you said, Panarin, pretty invisible in these games. Trocheck has been terrible all year offensively. So I think they're missing something offensively and defensively. I agree. But offensively they're missing.
Well, I think the offensive shortcomings are coming from the fact that, after we got wiped up by the Panthers physically in the playoffs last year, we talked about a lot that they needed to have that. We were hoping Rempe would bring that little action to us this year. He's not been in the lineup. There's no hitting on the forecheck. When I tell you from sitting upstairs, you see everything. There would be a chip into the zone. They would get it past the forecheck, and it was almost an odd man rush or a 3-on-3 every time going down the other end with the third Ranger fighting to pick up the third forward on the Devils. To watch it live was just, you just saw it upstairs, and it was just like, I couldn't even believe that. It was every time the Devils D had a chance to push that puck out of the net, out of the zone. Not with a lot of, the middle of the ice was wide open. They were hitting the forward for the Devils between the blue line and red line, and it was gone up ice. It was, whatever the structure was, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
There was no life. There was no life.
And I
no
think
hitting, no forecheck. The one hit Kreider finally threw on Hughes, which was, I thought, a bullshit call because it happens all game, and it put them down 2 men, which was ridiculous. The life that they did have just got taken out of them there. That was a bullshit call, but that was like the best hit Kreider's thrown in 5 years, and he got the penalty for it. So now he won't throw another hit for 10 games.
Trouba threw a nice hit, but it was too late.
No, yeah, that was a good hit.
Too late in the game.
But the whole game, Ed, in a rivalry game,
no, 100%.
There was no. I'm watching all the highlights on the games going on tonight. The teams they're blowing people up constantly. There's nothing. There's no life in the Rangers physically. And I'm not saying you need it out of Panarin. You need that as a banner jet. I get it. Those kind of guys, they're not going to be hitters. I get it. But something else has to happen, and it's not. It's just
Well, I
not.
said it.
Trocheck isn't.
I want to get back to the comment we just had about the defensive structure, but I mean, I said it when Fox threw that hit on the blue line. I guess it was at the Carolina game. I think Fox stepped up and threw that little bump on the blue line after the Carolina guy gave Laffy a shot in the back, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
Fox. I said it. I might be completely off, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about. I said it right away. Like, I'm not looking for Fox to throw an open ice hit, but there's no reason why he can't do something like that 1 or 2 times a game. You know, like, I don't know. We've been saying that for years about Fox. It's something that his game is missing. I mean, we see glimpses of it, but it would be nice for him to step up a little bit. Like I said, not lay the guy out, but put a little elbow into his chest, a little shoulder into his chest, you know? And then Trouba, like I said, like, it happened way too late. He's got to come out and do that the first or second shift. You know, you're telling me like Trouba doesn't have an opportunity to hit somebody on every single shift. You know, like he's got to do that almost every shift.
He's got to be careful against that team, though. They're quick.
Of course, he's got to find his spots. But like a bump here and there, he does get a little mean below the goal line. But even him, he's shying away or peeling off of finishing some checks. I'm starting to see.
I think the fact also to piggyback on that comment. The fact that they're mixing up these pairs, I think that's going to take away from him doing something like that because he's not sure of his partner. You know, you got to remember all those things on a split-second decision, and you're worried, like we talked about last week. It's not an easy situation. You're playing one of the fastest teams, it seems to me, in the league, and he was probably on his heels a little bit. You know, he wants to hit. I'm not going to blame him for the no-hitting because I know damn well if he could, he'd hit 5 guys a shift. But forget Schneider, my favorite. I'm watching him live. The kid is lost right now. I don't know what happened. I couldn't believe watching it. I could not believe it. He is just completely lost. I saw it on TV a couple of games, not Saturday, but last week, and I don't know what's going on. So
let me bring up that comment about the defensive scheme. Or Coach, are you seeing anything changing or anything that should be changing as far as that goes? I know they keep mixing up the pairs, and we're skipping ahead a little bit. We were going to talk about the defense later, but might as well just talk about it now.
Well, he's saying the defensive scheme. I think he means team defense. I don't see how NHL players, especially like I said, these aren't all young kids anymore. Laffy's been on the team for 3-4 years. Kakko's been out there. Cooley's there 2 years plus years. I mean, these guys should know where they should be defensively, basically. And like we talk about with our players, when it gets down and dirty, just stay in your zone, pick up a man and stay. There are guys wide open. The Rangers' heads are turning around like, where do I go? They don't even. It looks like they don't even know what they're doing. And how does that go from last year to this year like a light switch? Because last year they were strong.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, you know, maybe they just don't have the personnel to play such a man-on-man system. Laviolette.
No, I'm not saying man-on-man, and I'm saying you hold your zone and you pick up a man in your zone. But there were guys last night. There were guys wide open.
Yeah,
regularly, not now and then. It was like all night. You know, just puck watching and no urgency, and it's just get the puck out of the zone. My friend Joe's watching the game. He doesn't even really know hockey. He's like, just get it out of the zone. He's screaming.
They can't. They're terrible. They've been bad at that for years. But I think what I'm going to say might be a little controversial, but I think a lot of these guys outside of the Rangers, when they're ultimately traded or signed somewhere else, are going to look a lot better. Guys like Lindgren and Miller and maybe even Trouba, they're going to look a lot better in playing on a team with a more, zone structure where they're more just focused on a role. I feel like they run around too much and they're just not equipped for it. Either they lack the skating ability with a guy like Trouba, or they're not big enough like Lindgren, or they're dumb like Keandre. So I just think there's an issue. Like, you just got to simplify the game for these guys and just let them just stick to. I don't know. I feel like they're aggressive. They're too aggressive. It's almost a strict man-to-man. It feels like, and they just can't do that. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. But it's a very aggressive defense. They're moving around too much. You got to keep them in a pocket for now, so they can clear the zone. I don't know. Chris is saying they got to defend as a unit. Sometimes you got to just fall back on a zone defense, the complete zone.
I can't believe that these 3 coaches or 4 coaches must be in the room afterwards going, what's wrong with these guys? Because I guess you could blame it on the coaching staff as far as putting the lines out there, but they have to be just shaking their head because it's mind-boggling what's going on.
Well, I hate to jump around because I know Little Ed is moving the thing on the bottom there. Yes, but when you're saying they must be losing their mind, saying what's wrong with these guys, that takes us off the defense for a second. I want to get back to it, but I want to bring up Chris Drury because there's a lot of people out there right now blaming Chris Drury for the Rangers' struggles. Number one, point one people make is that this team is Jeff Gorton's team, and Drury has done very little to improve it other than swapping Strome for Trocheck. Most of these guys were acquired by Gorton, right, before Drury took the helm. So he's had 3 years here. What has he actually done to improve the roster? That's number one. Number two, the way he handled Gaudreau and Trouba in the offseason, he's being criticized for that. Obviously, waiving Gaudreau, letting him know 15 minutes before the waivers that he was being let go. And then Trouba, obviously trying to trade him, asking for his, no trade list so that he can make a deal, and Trouba blocking it with Detroit and all the drama that came with his wife and all that all summer. And then they start the year with Trouba as the captain still, after it was pretty well known that Drury tried to move him to clear cap space. And, hockey's a game of intangibles. It really is. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, although I love analytics, because I think they give us a lot of insight in sports into underlying factors, particularly in baseball more than hockey, but I think there's a lot of value to analytics. Hockey is different. Hockey's a very emotional game based on flow, based on emotion, based on momentum. And I do agree with the commenter who said that when those Trouba trade rumors started and Drury couldn't get it done, at that point, to start the year with Trouba as captain, you're hoping, hey, they're going to be professionals. They're going to, put it aside. But I think that's a failure by Drury for that to leak out into the media, it become public knowledge. Everyone on the team knows it. What is Trouba going to do as captain? He walks in there and says, guys, we got to pick it up. And all of them know that the Rangers want to move him, right? I mean, coach, just as a player, you'd hope they can be past that, but that's got to impact the room. Does Drury have blame for this?
Well, look, this was going to be a lot part of my coach's corner. I was telling Eddie and Lindsay, I watched this show called Comeback on the Boston Red Sox in 2003. They were on the cusp of beating the Yankees. The next offseason, there were rumors that they were trading Garcia Parra. Actually, the trade was announced on the radio and done, and then it didn't happen. And his best friend was on the radio going, yeah, we need A-Rod. He's a great shortstop. And the trade doesn't happen. Then they showed you behind the scenes with him walking in the locker room, and it's just silence. And, human nature is going to make you feel, even though, yeah, it's a business, you could say all that stuff that it's a business, but the locker room, they got Millar that year. They showed you Epstein went after him just for his locker room. He wasn't a superstar. And he brought the team together. So you get rid of a guy like Gaudreau, who's the glue in the locker room, albeit a lot of money he's getting paid. You get rid of him first, the way they did it, like you just said. Now you start with the Trouba nonsense. That gets leaked out. And I said that when it happened. That pisses me off that stuff gets leaked out. A lot of that stuff should be internal. And if it doesn't happen, look what happens. I firmly believe that this is a major part of it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Drury leaked it out, but I mean,
whoever it got out.
Little Ed, I mean, think about it. Like, you're Braden Schneider, right? Imagine a world where you're Braden Schneider. I wish, right? And
if I had Keandre's body and skill set, I would be.
Right. Okay. So imagine if you're Reid Schneider and you're going through the off season, you're doing your workouts, and you're like, oh, Rangers are trying to trade Trouba. This is a guy that you worked under for 2 years as a rookie and a second year player, learning from him. They call him Baby Trouba. You're trying to become a better defensive defenseman. He probably looks up to Trouba, right? They're trying to trade Trouba. He's wearing a C. I mean, you go into the locker room, Trouba, what kind of power does he have over that now, right? Like, everyone is tentative because they're like, oh shit, like Drury wants to trade this guy. Like, it's a feeling, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I really strongly believe that that really has affected the team. And I guess I didn't expect it, and I hate to be a Monday morning quarterback on it because again, they're pros, and I always say like, hey, they're pros, but I mean, Little Ed, like, do you see that as an issue for those kinds of players? Not just like, because I don't think Zibanejad cares that Trouba was like traded, or Kreider, like they don't care. But the Kakos, the Schneiders, like those guys who grew up with him as the leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where you look at him as a leader. I mean, where you could say like, clearly Drury doesn't like the message that Trouba is sending, whether he's worth that money or not. I think that's what you're kind of on what you're trying to say is like, Trouba's been trying to send us this message this whole time, or this one particular message, or act as a leader this particular way. And management is now saying that that's not good enough, or that's not the right message to be sending, or whatever the case may be. But then you look at it on the other hand. I mean, I'm always going to play the fence. And I saw Kako's post-game interview when they did win the game against the Canadians, and Trouba came out and had that fight. And then Kakko says something like, hey, he's our leader no matter what. It was up to him to do something like that. But it also hinted towards something where it's like, what took him so long to do something like that? So there might be some kind of like not giving up on your leader, but kind of like expecting more from your leader. And I mean, Chris Lard brought up something in the comments before. It's like when you have the season starting with the Trouba comments, how do you expect your captain to play with that emotional level? Where like kind of like what you said, it's like he's a little second guessing himself. Should I be going out and trying to hit people? Should I be going out and trying to stay out of the penalty box? What kind of leadership are the Rangers looking for? I mean, I know I'm kind of rambling a little all over the place, but I think I kind of gave like 3 different options on on where his teammates and where Trouba's head could be at. It's like, should I be going out of my way to hit people, or is management pissed off that I'm always in the box? It's like, I hope that behind the scenes they're being a little bit more transparent with these players. And I mean, I'll say it over and over again. I'm sure Coach Ed will agree with me. I can't stand Larry Brooks or any of these guys that are floating around the Rangers. They claim to be Rangers fans, and all they do is sabotage the team over and over again. They could make a very fine living by just having positive headlines and circling the team with some good things. All the charity cases that Trouba does, things like that. But instead, it's just he constantly has like these negative headlines that he just wants to sabotage the team. It's like, it's nauseating.
Well, I think there's a line between wanting to sabotage the team and journalism. So as a journalist, not everything's going to be positive. So I wouldn't expect that from a journalist, but I don't expect Larry
You don't have
Brooks
to leak that to get clicks.
No, he didn't have to leak it. He didn't have to leak it about his wife, especially.
And that's
so here's the thing though. You look at a team like Vegas, right? Vegas is out there and they just are cutthroat. They trade guys, they dump prospects, they trade veterans, they release guys, whatever they got to do, they get it done business-wise. And they don't have any animosity in their locker room. Their players show up to play. They want a Stanley Cup doing that. Like, why are the Rangers sitting here like, oh, they wanted to trade Trouba, they waived Gaudreau, I'm so upset. Like, are you kidding me? Like, grow up, dude. This is a business. Like, go out there and prove to the GM that you deserve to be on the team. Like, I don't want to hear this like, oh, Trouba didn't want to get traded, so he's not being a good captain this year because his head's not in it. Get over it, dude. Go play better. Go play better.
Well,
Period.
You could say that, but you can't, because you look at JT Miller's case. These guys have pressures on them, and they have to deal with things in their own structure.
Well, then bye.
Well, it's not that easy, though. As you said last episode, you can't just trade these guys. You can't send them down to the minors. You can't discipline them. They have all these rules. You can't.
No.
You could sit Panarin during the game, but you can't send them down to the minors if you suck. It's ridiculous.
Coach, I always say, let me give you an analogy, because I like to use work as an analogy, right? If I want to go this weekend to, Colorado and go hiking, and I'm sitting here and I'm concerned that if I take Friday off, I'm going to get in trouble. I shouldn't take Friday off because my job's not going to like that. That's not the job for me, right? Like, I don't want to work for a place like that, right? So here's the analogy. If you are the type of player that is going to fold because the GM demands more from you and wants to move your contract, then you're not going to win a Stanley Cup, because you need to have a different mindset to win in this league. You need to have
that's not why they want
mindset.
But that's not why they want to trade him. They didn't want to trade him because he's not playing well. They wanted to trade him because of salary cap issues.
It doesn't matter why. If Trouba was playing like an $8 million defenseman, he wouldn't be on the block. Period. He wouldn't be on the block. And not just him. I'm singling him out because he's on the news.
All right, again, but Little Ed said it last week. He's an $8 million defenseman that throws these mind-blowing hits. Team players are afraid to come across the middle. There's a different level of salary, like Goodrow, I just said before. Barclay Goodrow. He's not worth the $4 million or whatever he was making, but he is in the locker room. So there's different values you put on certain things. And, that's something Larry Brooks should be addressing and trying to point out, not just get him out of town and run him out of town. He should have went. He should give in and go for the good of the team.
You're missing my point. You're defending Trouba.
I'm not missing your point.
I'm not trying to attack Trouba.
I'm not missing your point.
Okay. I'm not trying to attack Trouba.
Putting it from the perspective of the other person.
I'm more so attacking the mindset of the players, right? Like, I'm not saying Trouba. I'm saying the mindset of the players, that they're folding because the GM is disappointed. If that's the case, then he does need to blow up the team. If Drury leaking that he's looking to make changes makes the team fold and go on a 6-game losing streak or whatever, then this isn't going to be the team that wins the cup. So just change it. Just be done with it. Pull the Band-Aid off.
I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it entirely. I wouldn't be opposed to a pretty blockbuster type of trade. Right now, I don't think they're gone. I mean, there are other teams. Colorado was on a bad losing streak. There are some pretty big teams that are in some trouble and not out of it right now. It's a matter of turning it around. If they go on a 6-game winning streak, they're right back in it.
Of course.
So I'm not ready to give up on the team. I'm wearing the no quit in New York shirt. I'm not ready to give up on it, but I think something needs to be done to stir the pot.
So what's that?
Something has to be done. I don't know what can be done. I don't know what can be done as far as salary cap and stuff. It's, that's something for the GM. That's what he gets paid millions of dollars for.
Well, I want both your opinions. I want both your opinions on this, but let's just start with you since you brought it up. Assume the salary cap doesn't exist. I'll just tell you if it's not doable. What are you thinking? What are you thinking could be done? Is it something the GM needs to do? Is it firing the coach? Like, what are we doing here?
I don't think it's firing the coach. I never really feel like that pretty much, but they need to make a move where they shake up the team. Like say you trade Zibanejad. Now Panarin's got to say, shit, they traded Zibanejad. I better pick it up a notch, and they bring in another player. You got to, like the Tkachuk-Huberdeau trade. We always talk about that. That was a big trade. Huberdeau was a 100-point guy. Gone. Bring in Tkachuk. Different mindset of the whole team. They need something like that. They need a guy to come in that throws the spark. We said it in the beginning of the season. We said it in the offseason. I gave my Brady Tkachuk trade. It didn't happen. And again, not to pick on Keandre. Keandre is a waste of time.
Zibanejad, that's one that's not going to happen.
He does nothing.
That's not going to happen.
I'm watching NHL highlights. Washington's got 6 defensemen. They're lighting it up. the Capitals, lighting it up. This guy's got 1 goal.
Yeah.
Come on. And he doesn't hit. He doesn't move the puck. It's just frustrating.
He's having a terrible, terrible season, Keandre. In a contract year, I might add.
If they give him a lot of money, then I'm ready to fire Drury. I'm sorry.
Coach, in these games, these 5 games, Keandre had no points, -5, 14 hits. Who's counting that?
He has been more physical. I'm gonna say he has been more physical. Not enough to where I'd say it's taking away from his scoring, but he's been a little bit more taking the body. But
Zibanejad's not going to happen. So look, the guys off the table to move are Zibanejad and Panarin. They have no move clauses. I think Trocheck too. I think he has 1 more year. You got Kreider and Trouba with limited no trade clauses. Fox, I don't think his no move kicked in yet. So you could move Fox. Igor, you can move. Kako, Lafreniere, those guys you can move. But like all those guys that you could move, in my opinion, and Little Ed can respond, is those are guys I wouldn't move. Like I'm not moving Kako right now. He's like one of the most noticeable players on the team. Like, why would I trade Kako?
If you look at
Kaku
your
and Cooley
stats,
right now are the only 2 players. It's crazy.
Yeah. Why would you trade Kako?
If you look at your stat sheet, all the games that they got blown out, the only guys that were on the stat sheet were those Kako Cooley guys.
Yep.
Brzezinski, Barad, Edstrom.
Well, what did I say?
Beastie, Smith.
What was the
Where
game
was
where I
Zibanejad,
texted you guys?
Panarin?
Yeah, what was the game where I texted you guys that like all 4 goals were under $2 million in salary or whatever?
Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect
Berard,
example right there.
Brzezinski.
I'm with Coach. You got to go for someone, and I know fans will be pissed off because especially you going after a player you gave up on or traded away for nothing. You got to go after JT Miller if he's really available for cheap, especially with all the rumors floating around where, he doesn't get along with Pedersen. You got to take advantage of that leverage where he's kind of almost going to coordinate where he wants to go. And I think a player like him in the locker room, on the ice, like Coach always says, grabbing someone by the shoulder pads and saying, like, what the hell are you doing type player. If you can't get Brady Tkachuk, I think right now JT Miller is the next best thing in the NHL. Other than Matthew Tkachuk, obviously.
Never should have traded him in the first place.
Of course not. But at this point, you got to forget about that. And you got to get him back.
Okay, so get him back. Now, the problem is he makes, I think,
that's the shakeup you need.
$8.5 million a year. So in order to get him back, you got to clear out the salary to bring him in. So that means you got to dump Trouba, or you got to get Zibanejad to waive, or you got to trade Kreider plus. That's the only way to get him right now at this moment. So
what if I don't know. What about like Miller in that deal because he's going to sign another deal?
Miller only makes right now, I think $3 million.
Well, you got to assume the Canucks are going to retain some, or I don't know. You're the contract guy.
They're going to retain him for 5-6 more years.
Include another team in it. Include the Sharks in it. Obviously, Drury's got a good relationship with Greer. You got to do something. You got to shake this team up.
I don't want to shut you down again, but the Sharks have maxed out their retention slots, so they can't even do that.
Well,
but it's a problem.
All I know is all these other teams figure shit out.
Just go get McDavid.
Maybe Mika.
I'm like, how did
get McDavid?
Drysdale to like $100 million? They got McDavid. They got freaking the other guy, the guy scoring.
Nugent
What's
Hopkins,
his name? Hyman. They got all these guys. How are they doing? How does Toronto
$2 million
do it?
goalie? They have a $2 million goalie. That's how they do it.
Yep.
But we didn't pay Igor 12 yet.
And their D makes less than $1 million. Their bottom pair is like trash. Just off the scrap heap. They just
Nurse makes less than $1 million?
No, he's their number one pair. He makes
maybe
$9.
Maybe
all right, so there's another 9.5.
Maybe Zibio want to play with his fellow countryman, Pedersen, in Vancouver. It's a beautiful city.
I don't see Zibanejad waving to go anywhere, frankly. I just don't see it. I mean,
No, I don't see it either, unfortunately.
And I don't see anyone retaining on Miller, so the only way to really do it is move Trouba or Kreider. And I don't – maybe that's the plan, but I don't really like the idea of moving out Kreider, a franchise legend.
No, you can't.
And
you can't do that.
And like, let's not forget, like, look, Kreider's an enigma, and yes, he's struggling a little bit this year overall. I know he's got 10 goals. He's on pace for like 40 goals, but he is struggling. But let's not forget that he's second all-time in game-winning goals for the team, that he single-handedly prevented the Rangers from the most embarrassing reverse sweep I've ever seen in my life last year against Carolina by getting a third-period hat trick. So you want a guy who performs in the playoffs? Like, this isn't the guy to move.
Let me shut you down right here, because the history of the Rangers is trading franchise players.
Right, I know. They're going to trade.
From when I was a kid. So forget that. That doesn't mean anything. They could still hang his banner in 10 years.
They're going to trade
go down the list. Jean Rattel, Brad Park, Roger Bear, Eddie Jockerman, Brian Leach. All of Graves left, Messier left. Come on.
Lundqvist.
Make the deal that has to be, Lundqvist. Make the deal that has to be made.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I don't want them to trade Kreider either. To me, I get rid of Zibanejad. You
can't.
You put Trouba in that position. Put Zibanejad in that position.
You just freaking can't.
Run him out of town.
Put the rumor out there like they did with Trouba.
So what do you do, Coach, if you're running the team? You want Zibanejad. You want to get rid of Zibanejad.
Should we just get into the corner?
Is this corner?
I forget what the
I
forget what the
managing the room.
Let's go. Let's go to the coach's corner.
All right, boys, bring it in.
And this is sponsored by Bella Italia Marble. You got to play the ad. I just got to laugh. I need a laugh. Like, just take a second.
You got to give me a minute. I knew I forgot something.
All right. So, Coach, we'll do it. We'll do it after the bit.
I'll have it in a second.
Managing the room. All right. We're talking about all the struggles the team is going through. We're talking about.
Hey, everybody. Coach Ed here. I'm over here in the shop at Bella Italia Marble Granite and Quartz, picking up my order for a nice little bathroom I'm doing. I've been a contractor almost as long as I'm a hockey coach. So listen to me when I tell you, when you want the quality work and craftsmanship, I'm going to see the boys over at Bella. They serve all 5 boroughs, Westchester, Long Island, all the way out to Montauk. Whether you're a Ranger fan, Islander fan, Devils fan, they're going to take care of you no matter what. Make sure you give them a call, 516-561-1018. Let's go, Rangers.
About that ad. My favorite part about that ad is when Coach is reading the phone number of the company and he says the first 6 numbers correctly, but then he has to look at the last 4 just to make sure that he's right. I love that ad so much. We got to do more of those, man. It's so good. If nothing else comes from this podcast other than, we get to hang out every week, we have our loyal listeners, and that's it, that ad will be enough for me. As I get older. Anyway, Coach, managing the room. This is really important, I think, from a coaching perspective. Obviously, the NHL is much different than the level you coach at, okay? But, you got all the trade rumors, Drury's mishandling of certain aspects with the leadership. I just want to know, like, what is the coaching staff's responsibility to manage all of that with the media and the management? Particularly last night, Vince Mercogliano tweeted Laviolette was late to his press conference because Drury, or management, quote unquote, came to the locker room after the game. It seems like Laviolette's got a lot to manage here. So I'm just curious, how does he manage all the personalities of the team, the management, the media, and kind of get this back on track?
I mean, he's got to look over his shoulder at a guy who's younger than him, who has less experience off the ice than he does, and he's got to answer to him. Again, watching these shows, I finally watched the Montreal show on Prime that Eddie was talking about. Not the Montreal, the Toronto show.
The one from 3 years ago?
No, the one prime with the first one.
Face off.
Face off.
That's not Toronto's in
Well,
it a little
they
bit,
both
but
have it a little bit, but what the players go through off the ice with injuries, dealing with the media, dealing with friendships, there's a lot of stuff that goes on off the ice, and the coach and the GM. Maybe Drury came down in the locker room and started screaming. Who knows? We don't know. But Laviolette's got to sit there. His head's got to be spinning. You could see it in his face on the bench. He doesn't know what to do, mixing up the lines. Who's going to do this? What's the responsibility? I heard Laviolette's one press conference where it's got to be the players in the locker room. They got to figure it out. They're all taught what to do. They're not doing it. These guys go through video sessions, chalkboard sessions, lectures. After a while, you want to say, all right, guys, I said enough. You got, let's make it happen. And it's up to each guy to take it upon themselves, the accountability we've been talking about. And unfortunately, that's part of the captain's job too. I'm not blaming it on Trouba by no means, but the whole dynamic of the team was upside down with that off-season stuff.
Yeah, it's tough to put it on the coach at this level. But I looked at, I watched suffered through the post-game show yesterday because I really wanted to see what the players were saying. And Vincent Trocheck's quote really stood out to me. And I look at Trocheck as a leader on this team. I don't know if a lot of fans do, but I think he's a leader by the way he plays. And this was his quote, Coach. Guys who are usually playmakers who score goals have got to chip it in, grind it out. Guys who aren't usually hitting have got to start hitting. We've just got to play out of our comfort zone to get our way out of this. Is he sending a message to other players in the room with that quote, you think?
100%.
Is that coming from the coach? Is the coach involved in that, or you think that's just Troche doing that?
I mean, it's possible Laviolette could go to him and say, step it up. We need you to step something up and say something. I don't really know. That's just speculating. But I don't think you need to tell, when you're coaching, you don't need to tell certain people certain things. I mean, it's part of the way I like to pick captains and assistant captains. They're guys that I could be on top of and push and berate a little bit and go at, where they're going to take it and they're going to respond a little bit, maybe pout a little bit, but they're going to figure it out and know. And I think that's a guy like Trocheck. He could push him and press the buttons where he's not going to shut Laviolette out. He's going to say, this is what we need to do. I mean, we've been talking about what he said for years. Zibanejad doesn't need to do open ice hits, but he's got to be a little more physical. Panarin's got to dump the puck in most of the time in certain games. That's what he's talking about directly. Talking about those two guys. And probably Kreider. I mean, these are the guys he's talking about. Laffy plays physical, but Panarin doesn't play a puck management game. And for a guy like Trocheck, who is that kind of player, it's got to frustrate him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he in a way is calling out Zibanejad and Panarin. I mean, that's how
Panarin would never survive playing for Brindamore.
Well, he played for Tortorella. He did pretty well.
I don't know how. I'd like to. I wish I would have watched that more closely.
Tortorella loved Panarin too. They beat Tampa that year. Remember, on Columbus.
I don't. I'd love to go back and watch that series because I just can't.
I think an important part of Trocheck's quote, or just in general, is like every player on a team has a role. And Coach Ed and I go through the same thing with Stony Brook, and you go through it on any level. I mean, except for when you're younger, when your might squirts. I mean, you're supposed to give the players freedom to have whatever role they choose, really. But we've been lucky enough to coach on the higher level. So at this point, the players kind of have a general idea of what type of player they are, or they should have a general idea of what player they are. And it's important for a hockey team for everyone to accept their role on the team and perform. And that goes on because you like to compare it to real life situations. I mean, when you're at a job or when you're in the office or in a conference room, I mean, everyone is expected to have a role and they're expected to perform. And all it takes is one person in the locker room, one person in management, one person, I guess in this aspect, your coach, your captain, whatever the case may be. Well, all it takes is one person to not perform or not do their role, and the rest of the team starts to blow up a little bit. And last year we saw almost perfect hockey. Everyone was accepting their role. Trocheck was winning faceoffs. Panarin had his best season he's ever had. Mika didn't have the season that we really want him to have, but he had an outstanding defensive season. Players had accepted their roles. This season, players not only aren't accepting their roles, they're not even performing up to their ability. So what Trocheck is saying, I think, is Panarin, if you're not going to put the puck in the net, or if you're not going to put up 120 points, then you better start chipping in other ways and just making the smart decisions. Because then so by you making that right decision by dumping the puck in, might give someone else an opportunity to now step up and put the puck in the net, like Lafreniere or Hedel or any of the other line mates they've been trying to throw with Panarin. And Zibanejad had the same thing. If you're not going to perform on the score sheet, you got to start forechecking and doing something else, so someone else can step up in your position and start putting the puck in the net, like Kakko's doing, and Cooley and players like that. So if you're not going to. Yeah, if you're, and Trouba too, if you're not going to start throwing hits, which is what your role is, then you're going to have to find somewhere else to play. And maybe the other team, or maybe you'll find your role with that team, So, and Trocheck, I don't think he's not ruling himself out either, because you could see his play start to elevate a little bit in the last couple games. It's not the Trocheck we're used to, but he's not going to just call out his teammates and then also turtle and not do anything. At least he's trying. At least he's putting in the effort.
I saw a good game from him yesterday. I thought he had a bunch of shots on goal, tons of chances. He was physical. I like Trocheck's game. I think he is an underrated engine of this team, and I don't think he gets talked about enough. But last year he was so good.
In the playoffs,
he had 75 points or whatever. And it just drove this team, and he has really struggled offensively this season. And I think if he gets going, and he can be the type of guy to really elevate this team to, back to winning ways. But another aspect of this,
but at the same time, he's not the type of player that's going to be do it himself. Obviously, he's not a McDavid. He's not a Barkov. It's not like he needs a line mate, which was Panarin last year. And now that's not even he can't do it himself. Trocheck is a great hockey player, but he's not going to change the entire game. I understand what you're saying. Yes, he's a catalyst. He's like Kreider in that instance, where he's able to drive a line, but he's not able to just carry the team. He needs to.
No, he'll set an example. He
right.
He sets a level of performance that's expected. Because you look at him and you're like, okay, if he's doing this, I got to do it too, right? It's that kind of leadership that Trocheck can bring. But before we move off this, I do want to bring up another point, and I always bring this up. But a big part, you got to remember, this is their job, these guys. So a big part of it is job satisfaction, right? You got to be happy in your job. So when you look at these young players on the team, Will Cooley, Capo Kakko, Edstrom, right? Even Berard, who's come up and been a little, engine, right, as well. You look at these guys, and they're just constantly watching Zibanejad, Kreider, Trouba, Panarin, even Trocheck himself underperform and continue to get ice time. And I was texting someone yesterday during the game. 2 of those power play 1 was out there for the full 2 minutes.
The whole thing. Yeah, the whole game.
They did nothing. Why, as the coach, are you continuing to reward these guys? Why not? If I were the coach, I almost said, just put Cooley, Kakko, Hedel, Fox, and whoever, just put them on the power play. Forget it. Teach them a lesson, I don't know.
They say it all the time on the radio when coaches are on the hot seat. When a coach is on the hot seat, or when he feels like his job is a little bit in jeopardy, he's always going to ride the veterans. He's going to expect the power play to get it done. We always say, we're not seeing practice. I guarantee you that power play is lighting it up in practice, but it's not going to carry over to the game. I'd love to see how their practices are, what the intensity level is. I remember last year that was a big topic. Oh, Laviolette brings the intensity to their practices, and they've been practicing like they play.
Yeah.
We haven't heard much of that this year.
Well, I saw a coach, he benched Panarin and Lafreniere for the last 5 minutes of the first period yesterday. I don't know if you noticed it live. And that was
I
a
did
big
not.
deal. They were talking about it. Big deal, right? Oh, they got benched. Second period starts with the Rangers on the power play. Panarin's back out there, right? So, I mean, maybe that's a start, but he's got to send a message. You know, you said before you want to push the Zibanejad out pretty much, right? Get him to wave because you think that he's the piece that needs to be moved.
I'm not saying him, but
I really like Mika. It's really sucks.
I do too, but you
like,
got it. Something's got to be changed.
I know. I
didn't
agree.
work in the playoffs for the last 3 years.
I don't dislike Mika. I mean, it sucks. I really do like him. He was my favorite player.
Look,
I
you
thought
can't
he
have
was
Mika.
Rangers-
You can't have Mika and Panarin. They're both similar. They're not physical. Only I think Mika's better defensively as far as penalty kill and such. But you know they had a freaking like a 2-on-0 and they didn't get a shot off last night on a shorty.
I'm just saying, why doesn't Laviolette do something drastic like start the game with Zibanejad centering the fourth line or healthy scratched? Like, why not do that? Like, send him a message.
Maybe that's what management was down there for.
You know, send him a message. Like, this is not good enough. I know you. And Mika, in his post-game pressers, he's like so depressed and like, gotta stay positive. You know, what else can I do? You know, I'm just gonna keep going. Like, dude, how about you say like, I'm not good enough right now, and I'll figure it out. Like, you know, this is not good enough for us to be successful. Like, oh, you know, like he's just, I just can't. I can't do it anymore. I can't. I really can't. He would be scratched if I were the coach. I know they don't have center depth, but
I mean, you can do that. That's something you can do for sure.
And Keandre too. You know, you were dead on Keandre weeks before I was.
Years.
I'll give you that. No, weeks. Last year, coach liked Keandre. This year he's been awful though. He really has. He needs to be sat. You know, he just needs to sit.
What about when he slid down to take away that 2-on-1, which I don't think was the wrong play, but after they ended up scoring off of it, he just put his head in his hands. You know, he just like while he was still on the ice, just buried his head in his hands, like almost like I can't do anything right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's his body language almost every single time. And it's like you rewind it 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's like if you're going to be that disappointed in yourself, it's like what Coach Ed and I always go through. And they actually said it in Miracle. If you haven't watched Miracle in a long time, now's the time to watch it because Herb Brooks is exactly like Coach Ed.
Why? So I can watch the Rangers lose to Alaska?
He says it to Eruzione. He says something on the ice. He's like, Eruzione, you got to put that in. He goes, I know, Coach. And he's like, if you know, then why don't you do it or whatever? And Coach Ed says that to at least one of our players every single game.
Because Coach watched the movie too many times. Sorry, I was thinking Mystery Alaska.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's the same
a lot
thing.
of things I say I might have picked up from reading something. I don't know,
but no, it's true though. It's like if you know, like you constantly make the same mistake over and over again. I'm constantly watching Miller, and I know I'm like a culprit of just watching the puck and not really watching the players. I really am trying hard to just watch Miller when he's on the ice. He's out of position every single play.
He's terrible.
Every
Nothing
play,
good about
and
it.
it's just like he leaves the guy wide open in front. He puck watches on the penalty kill. He's soft behind the net. It's just like he let up that wraparound to somebody the other night, and I was just like, "What is going on?" He's on the guy. He's on the guy, and the guy still gets a wraparound goal. It makes zero sense.
I don't know.
To tie the game
in the third.
How are you not like when you're up? If you're on a losing streak, you're up. You're finally up by a goal against a Metro Division rival. You're not gritting your teeth a little bit stronger, and you're not letting Svechnikov wrap that puck around. Are you kidding? It's like I don't understand it.
Especially when you consider the guy is built like an Adonis male. Like he's like 6'5", like an 8-pack. He's jacked. Like there's no reason that this guy couldn't.
Zach Jones is almost half his size.
He can't outmuscle 90% of the league. Like, give me a break. You know,
it's crazy, man. It's wild.
It comes down to this. Joke. I mean, I was at the game, so I didn't hear Valaket in between periods, but he was on top of Hughes for being a showman.
Yeah,
like rubbing it in on that breakaway, and they talked.
Coach, you don't know how much how much backlash that got on social media, Coach.
Joey Dollars called me
disgusting.
today, and he said he heard it on the radio. He goes, "What happened in the game last night?" Blah, blah. I go, "I don't know. Tell me." He didn't know the whole thing, but Rupper went over it on the tape room thing, and he said, "Look, I love Jack Hughes. I love that he does that stuff. I love everything about him." He goes, "But if I'm on the Rangers, that's a slap in the face." And no one did it. It reminds me when Panarin got ragdolled. No one has any life in the team at all, and
the
that's
same
why
thing
you need somebody there. You got to get rid of Panarin or Zibanejad. We need someone that's a strong forward. I want to say a Tom Wilson type that he can put 20 in, and he's going to be out there. It's a type. It's a Marchand type. That's the type of guy you want. You need
JT Miller.
Matthew Tkachuk. It's all in that same vein.
I hate to say it,
These
but
guys have no
JT Miller.
urgency. There's no urgency.
They didn't have to trade anything for JT Miller.
JT Miller was not the JT Miller he is now.
You know what? Maybe they could trade Kakko for JT Miller, and then 4 years from now we can talk about how they need to get Kakko because that's the player they're missing. Let's do that.
Because they're missing a defensive structure.
It might be true. It might not.
Liner.
That's the chance you take.
No, you got to develop young guys. They never should have. Anyway, Valley got criticized hard for saying that Jack Hughes was trying to embarrass Igor Shesterkin with that goal. A lot of people are saying, like, what do you mean he's trying to embarrass him? Hughes got interviewed after, and he's like, I don't even know what that means. He wouldn't even respond to it because, of course, the media asked Hughes what he thought of the comment. But I mean, look, a lot of people may think that Valley was off base there, but I think what Valley was saying isn't that Hughes did anything wrong. Hughes didn't do anything wrong by making that play. Hughes is trying to score a goal and be flashy. That's his game. The Rangers were wrong for not responding to that, right? Like, that's the issue, dude. It's like flipping the bat when you hit a home run, right? Like,
right, that's what they were talking about.
The next pitch is going by the guy's ears. There's nothing wrong with a guy hitting a home run and flipping his bat. Celebrate how you want to celebrate, but if you're not expecting the pitcher is going to throw it in your ears next time you're up, then you're going to flip your bat endlessly. And that's embarrassing to the team, right? So you got to have courage to, like, stand up for your team and not tolerate that kind of behavior. That was Valley's point. So I agree with both of you. And anyone who says Valley was wrong missed the point completely. He wasn't bashing Jack Hughes for doing
going back to the Red Sox analogy.
He watched this thing 20 minutes before the episode.
You have to see it. Clemens hits the guy on the Red Sox, right? Pedro goes up to the guy on the bench and goes, "Who do you want me to get?"
Yeah, of course. Because
Pedro was making bank. He could care. His life is set. But the inner desire to say, you're going to hit my guy. What are you out of your mind? He went up to the guy and said to him, the guy who got hit said, "Who do you want me to get?" So Igor should have said to whoever, Igor's probably pissed because the Rangers have no life. He's just like Lundqvist used to get pissed.
I don't know.
He shouldn't have to say anything.
Igor himself has been terrible. And look, Chris, I get your perspective. I don't agree with you. I think that was Instagram hockey. I think that's a way of saying, like, that's a flashy move. It's like playing NHL 24.
He could have put the puck in.
Deeks. Yeah.
But
it's
he scored on breakaways on shots constantly.
It's a shootout move.
That move wasn't it wasn't even open. It wasn't even open.
But they made a good point. They made a good point. Yeah, it is an Instagram move, but Hughes grew up in this culture. Like,
no, it's not bashing him to say that. That's not bashing him. That's just what it is. It's a play that
these kids don't know that golden rule where you don't show up a goalie like that. It's part of their culture growing up. It's all showmanship, and this, just like the All-Star game, all that showmanship on the drill, all the competitions mean nothing anymore. So that's their makeup. The old school guys are different.
Again, I do not blame Hughes for that at all. I don't care why he did it. I have no problem with Jack Hughes trying that move. I have absolutely zero problem with it. I have a problem with the Rangers' response to it. That's my problem. And I think that was Valley's point, but we don't need to belabor it. I don't think there's an issue with the comment. I think Valley is an analyst of the Rangers, and
he's been in the locker room. He's a player. He's an
pretty
ex-goalie.
honest. He's pretty honest about the team. You know, he's one of the few Rangers guys who will actually criticize this team. I've seen him say Panarin might need to be healthy scratched. You know, I've seen him say a lot of things that a lot of Rangers media, Sam, Joe, the beat reporters won't say. And he's being honest about the team having no courage. That's what he's saying.
And everything that we're speculating on, like what Laviolette could be doing in the locker room, what Trocheck could be thinking, what this person could be saying, Laviolette's been there. And people are still questioning like what he says or what he thinks. He's literally been in the locker room.
Valakat, you mean?
What did I say, Laviolette?
Yeah.
Yeah, Valakat. You know, he's literally been there. He's been Lundqvist's backup, one of the best in the world, best to ever do it. You know, it's just like you're not going to trust this guy's opinion. Why are you even trusting our opinion?
Yeah, I think if you look at Chris's comments here, I think that people were upset about it because they don't want to put down the showmanship of the game, and all players do it, right? Like Chris points out, Zach Jones tried at Michigan up 5-1 late in the third, early in the season. Yeah, I don't blame Zach Jones for doing that. The other team should have been upset that Zach Jones tried at Michigan up 5-1 in the third period. That's the point, right? Like, I don't blame Zach Jones.
When I'm coaching against a team that's kicking our ass and they try to do that stuff, I'm screaming at my defense. How are you letting them get away with that?
Yeah.
It happened about 2 weeks ago. I was livid. I'm like, how are you not pissed off? You know, it's very frustrating. So that's what I'm saying. Laviolette has to be frustrated saying, guys, what are we doing? You know, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. We'll do our what are we doing first? Stars of the week? Yeah, let's go to our
milestone moment.
Oh, geez, I don't even know where I am anymore. Let's do our milestone moment, sponsored by Old Country Tile. 1,700 franchise wins. The Rangers' only win during this stretch here gets them to 1,700. We also had Brett Berard with his first point and assist and his first NHL goal as well. So shout out to Brett Berard. But 1,700 franchise wins is quite a lot. When will they get 1,701? Will it be next week? Will it be the week after? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Maybe it'll happen in 2025. I'm not sure. But
I don't know. They're coming into a hot Pittsburgh team. That's all I know.
Oh, of course, right? Yeah,
what was the didn't Berard set a record too for like the first rookie to put a point up in his first 3 games or something like that? I think that popped up during one of the games.
Didn't Stepan score a hat trick in his first game as a rookie?
No, like in 3 consecutive games, Berard had a point. In his first 3 games in the NHL, he recorded a point. I think it tied a record for the Rangers. I tried Googling it before, but I couldn't find it. But they definitely threw something on during the game, something along those lines.
I don't think that was it because he only had 2 points. So
he didn't get a point in the first game.
Okay.
He only had 2 points, but maybe something came up, but I didn't see it.
Maybe Sam and Joe will say it again next game.
I'm sure the Google machine will know if someone wants to tell us.
I tried.
I'm sure Chris knows. I'm sure Chris knows. He'll tell us. Anyway. All right. That's our milestone moment, sponsored by Old Country Tile.
So it was a trivia question. So he had points in his first 2, but the trivia question was who had 3. So what was the answer, Chris? Do you remember?
I'm gonna guess
this kid Chris, he should be our behind the scenes fact checker.
Yeah, no, he's good. He knows his stuff.
And Paul thinks it was 1,700 home wins, but I'm pretty sure it was overall wins.
100 years, that would be 17 wins a year. I think it's probably home wins.
Probably home wins, little Ed. Well, there you go.
You wrote franchise wins in the outline.
Oh, you're gonna blame me?
Cousin Ed gets.
You're not gonna blame me.
I went by your text. I didn't look it up. Anyway, 1,700 home franchise wins, still a great accomplishment. All right, let's go on to our stars of the week. Listen, when the Rangers don't
ahead.
perform well, neither do we, right? It is what it is. All right.
No
Offensive
chuckle at
player.
the picture. What happened? You all right?
Yeah, I laughed, but I was muted. Offensive player of the week. Who's our offensive player of the week here, guys? Coach, start us.
I'm gonna go with Cooley. I mean,
Yeah.
put up a few points.
Who else you
4
gonna go with?
assists. I might just go with Cooley across the board, except for the doghouse. To be honest with you,
Yeah, I went with
I don't know
Cooley
who
too
else I
for
could put out. I
offense.
don't know who else I could put out there.
Little Ed, who you got?
Cooley, man. He's involved in every play. He's one of the only guys driving any sort of offense, going to the net hard, just stirring shit up in front,
Yeah. It's got to be him.
It was
It's got to be.
it was Stu
5
Bickle
points.
who did the three games in a row.
Oh,
Stu
geez.
Bickle?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Good Lord. All right. Defensive player of the week, Little Ed. Who's your defensive player of the week?
I'm giving it to Zach Jones. I think he's been playing pretty well. I mean, as well as he can. I was trying to say it before, but even he's been throwing the body around, he's getting physical, doing his best, even as a small guy. And if he's able to do it, or at least able to put the effort in, I think other guys should be able to do the same thing.
I went empty. I think the defense has been terrible, so I didn't pick anybody. Coach, who you got?
I mean, I agree with Eddie. I like the way Zach Jones has been playing for a guy who can step into a game and just get on the second unit power play and make some things happen. But I'm going to give it to Quickie for pulling out that win when we needed it. I saw him make a lot of tough saves. Could have got real ugly there.
It's pretty sad. Guy played 1 out of 5 games, and he gets defensive player of the week. But anyway, key contributor award. I'll start this one. I took Capo Caco. I just really like his game right now. I think he's cycling well. He's been a little more physical. He's getting more shots on goal, which I think is something that's been lacking over the years. With too many zeros in the box score. This year, that hasn't been the case. So been pretty happy with his play. And I think he complements Will Cooley really well. I think those two need to stay together, and they can rotate the centers if they want to find a mix, but those two really are clicking. Little Ed, who you got?
Yeah, I'm with you. They got the chemistry. Finally, I mean, I think, like I was saying before, where players got to find their roles and take advantage of it. I think players like Cooley and Kako have done that. Kako especially is not trying to do too much. He's taking advantage of the little ice time he's getting, and hopefully he gets more and keeps it up.
That'd be nice. Coach?
I'm going with Cooley.
Cooley is the offensive player of the week and the key contributor?
Yeah.
And defensive.
Okay.
No, I gave Quickie the defensive.
Oh.
All right. Highlight.
He's throwing the body. He's throwing the body. He's putting pucks in the net. He's giving some helpers. He did everything but have a fight.
What happened to you saying you like to spread the love and give it to different guys, and now you're just going?
I can't right now.
He's the only guy. What about Kako?
Even my boy. I didn't see enough of Kako. Even Kako's nice power play goal was what? How did he get that goal?
It was a great play.
By
Jones, Cooley, Kako.
Okay.
All right, Little Ed. Highlight play of the week. What do you got?
Oh, don't go to me. I got nothing. I just
gave you the highlight play.
I just went with the Kako game-winning goal because
if you want to do that around the board. Around the board. Was it though? Jones kind of fumbled the puck. He didn't really know what to do with it. The guy came in from behind him. If the guy made that back pressure play and turned the puck back up ice, it probably would have been a 3-on-1 for Montreal game over.
The only reason
shorthanded.
The only reason I took that play is because it's the only play in these 5 games that made me jump out of my seat. It is the only one. When he scored, I jumped up and pumped my fist, and I hadn't done that in a while. So that's why I picked it.
Yeah. I just like the heads-up play by Cooley to just dish it there knowing he's there. He didn't even look.
It was a great
No,
shot.
that's the chemistry. Well, and the shot too is exactly what Zibanejad didn't do in the game before when he had the opportunity to tie the game. Put the puck through the back of the net, take nothing for granted, especially when you're in a slump. When you're in a slump like that, he goes to flick it in like a little.
That open
the
net
puck through the
against
back
Philly.
of the net.
That open net against Philly, that's so bad.
So bad.
That is just so bad, man. We didn't even talk about that. That is just so bad. All right. It is time for Coach Ed's Doghouse. We haven't done this in a while, a couple episodes. Coach, last time we did this, you had Mika Zibanejad and Keandre Miller in your doghouse. I'm assuming they're both still in, but you never know with you. So who you got in the doghouse now?
I got everybody in but Cooley, Kako, and Quickie.
Like you said, you're gonna have to build a hotel in the backyard.
Do it. You're gonna have to do an algebra equation to figure out who's in.
What about Jones? You just gave him credit before. Is he in?
All right, I'll put Jones out too. He's playing well. But Fox, I watched Fox last night. He was another guy lost. Very surprising. He got beat quite a few times.
We didn't get to this point, but the Rangers' defense is just not scoring. That's a big deal. I think I want to just make this point quickly. Should have covered this earlier, but Schneider leads defensemen with goals and with two goals. Jones has 1, Miller has 1, Lindgren has 1, Mancini has 1. Fox and Trouba have 0 goals so far through 24 games.
How does Fox have 0 goals?
Fox had 17 goals last year, and he has 0 goals right now. So I don't know.
I think one of us picked him to get the Norris again this year too.
Yeah, well. All right. Well, last time I also
how about I throw this curveball? How about we do a 1975 trade where we trade Kreider for Marchand?
No thanks.
No thanks.
I'll keep Kreider. So last time I had Miller.
I want to hear Mikey P's comment on that.
I had Miller and Zibanejad in the doghouse. This week I have Miller, Zibanejad, Trouba, Smith, Lindgren, Fox, Igor, Panarin, Lafreniere, and Schneider. Specifically those players. That's my doghouse. I'll say it again. Miller, Zibanejad, Trouba, Smith, Lindgren, Fox, Igor, Panarin, Lafreniere, and Schneider.
I'll second that.
So I left out some guys, but those are the guys I'm singling out as my doghouse. I that's like ridiculous. I mean, I literally could have done what you did, Coach. You took the easy way out. I sat here and really thought, and I went player by player, and I'm like, doghouse.
It's
Insane.
freaking brutal. It's brutal.
Insane.
It's not even taking a game off. It's taking a month off. Taking 3 weeks off.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Smith is kind of just like flying under the radar as like, I mean, it's shouldn't really be pointing the blame at him, but player like that,
and he's just not doing anything.
I'm just saying, yeah, like a player like that, even if he's coming to a new team, it's very easy to make a difference as far as like forechecking, hitting, just making things happen. And no one is doing anything except for the select few players that we named. Kako, Cooley, Jones, I mean, even Hedo came back. Hedo played decent when he came back. It's hard.
Hedo was invisible.
Can't expect much out of him.
Hedo did nothing last night. 0.
It's ugly.
Yeah, Hedo looked a little off last night. I feel like whatever injury he had, he is shying away a little bit from. I'd rather him do that than I'd rather him just sit until he feels like he can get hit. To be honest with you, but
yeah,
I don't want him to get hurt. But he does look a little bit tentative. So hopefully that changes as he plays.
It's natural. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with his game either, but. Overall, I left him out. He's been dealing with injuries, whatever. All right, Little Ed, are you doing everyone but Cooley, Cackle, Jones, and Quick, or are you doing my specific list of 8 guys?
I got everyone except for those 4.
All right.
I'm with Coach.
All right. Well, let's take a break, toss it over to Mikey P for the Rangers Ed 150, and get a little fantasy update so you guys can catch up on the Rangers Ed Fantasy League.
Before we get into trivia, it's time to throw it over to Mikey P with your Rangers Ed 150, the fastest 150 seconds in the National Hockey Podcast League.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rangers Ed 150. We are officially into December, and I'm guessing nobody had Washington and Minnesota as divisional leaders on December 1st on their bingo card. But stranger things have happened in the NHL. Out west in the Pacific Division, Vegas is still sitting in first place despite dropping 2 games last week, but LA moved up to second with wins in 3 of 4 contests and closed the point gap between themselves and the Golden Knights to just 2. The Canucks also picked up wins in 2 of their 3 contests, moving them to third place, 4 points behind Vegas. And Jake DeBrusk seems to have found a home in Vancouver with 10 goals through his first 23 games as a Canuck. With Thatcher Demko, set to return any day now, the Canucks do seem ready to make a run up the standings despite the absence of JT Miller. The Flames dropped down to 4th place after going 0-4 last week and losing to 4 bottom feeders in the Sens, Wings, Jackets, and Pens. And finally, just like last season, the Oilers are finding their game and have won 7 of their last 10, moving them up into 4th place, just 1 point behind the 3rd place Canucks. Further east in the Central Division, the Jets had a rough week, dropping 2 of their 3 contests and falling to 2nd place, while the Wild continue rolling with wins in 3 of 4 to move them up into 1st place. Kirill Kaprizov is leading the league with 38 points, and goaltender Philip Gustafson's 2.04 goals against average and .929 save percentage have him leading the league in both of those categories. The Stars are still in 3rd place with a league best 60 goals against through 23 games played, and the Avalanche are in 4th place despite dropping 3 of 4 contests last week and having a gaping hole in their lineup between the pipes. Speaking of their goaltending issues, they did make a trade with just Justus Annunen and a 2025 6th-round pick heading to Nashville for goaltender Scott Wedgwood. Back east in the Atlantic Division, Florida seems to have righted the ship with wins in 3 of 4, including back-to-back 6-3 and 6-0 statement wins against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Leafs fell back to 2nd place despite winning 2 of 3, but their lone loss was to the Panthers, which set them back a bit in the Atlantic standings. The Bruins are 4-2 since Sacco took the helm, including a 6-3 win over Montreal on Sunday to cap off their centennial year and keep them in 3rd place, 1 point ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Bruins are, however, the only team in a top 3 divisional position with a minus goal differential, sitting at a brutal -16, so they do have some defensive woes that they need to straighten out. Finally, back in the Metropolitan Division, Washington jumped up into 1st place ahead of the Devils after putting up a 4-0 record last week. Jacob Chikrin notched 7 points through those 4 games, and despite Ovechkin being on IR, the Caps have not lost a step and just keep on winning. The Devils, Canes, and Rangers sit in the 2, 3, and 4 spots, followed immediately by the Flyers and Blue Jackets. And if the Rangers especially don't figure it out on the defensive side of the red line, the Flyers and Jackets are playing like they deserve a top 4 divisional position. The Rangers have 3 games this week, and as always, their upcoming schedule is brought to you by Sorrento's. Make sure you're ready to order your game time meal. Tonight, Monday night, they're at home for a divisional tilt against the 2nd place New Jersey Devils. Then they have a 3-day break and play again on Friday at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Finally, they top it off with a game on Sunday where they are again at home to face off against the Seattle Kraken. As always, lots of good hockey coming up this week, so make sure to tune in next week for more updates. This has been your 150. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to check in once again on the Rangers Ed Fantasy League. We are currently in week 9 of our schedule, and our friend Neil over at Devil's State of Mind is leading the charge in 1st place despite not leading the league in any one scoring category. Alongside Neil, we have cousin Ed, who has been nothing but an almost lately in fantasy hockey with his last ship coming way back in 2017. But rest assured, folks, he is trying his hardest posting a league-leading 20 transactions through 9 weeks.
Gotta do it.
In third place, we got yours truly, the reigning Rangers Ed Fantasy Hockey champion, coming fresh off a Week 8 victory over the first place Devils State of Mind squad. Next, we got Mikey X Producies in fourth place, putting in a good show this season after multiple sources tell me that Mrs. 150 hurt his feelings last year. In fifth place, we got Daisy Dukes with unquestionably the best goalie tandem in the league of Philip Gustafson and Kevin Lankinen, although that might change with Thatcher Demko set to come back any day now and split time with Lankinen. Rounding out the top half of the standings, we got the Trouba Train in sixth place. He might not be miles ahead in first place this year, but damn it, folks, he's still got the most face-off wins. For the bottom half of the standings, we got Mrs. 150 in seventh place, Nikki Blogs in eighth place, who hasn't looked at his lineup since he drafted it, and probably should pay attention to his trade proposals. Coach Ed is in ninth place. Little Ed is in 10th place. Friendly reminder, he did draft Owen Tippett 64th overall. Mr. Downtown Boozy of the Only Bruins podcast is in 11th place. And just like last season, every league has one. Lucarelli Law is in last place. We got a lot more parity in the league this year, folks, and things are only going to get more competitive as the season rolls on. So we'll check back in on the standings in a few weeks. But for now, this has been our Rangers Ed Fantasy Update.
This guy went to my fantasy profile to see when my last championship was. That means he had to click on my team, click on my name, and look at my standings. So he saw my second and third place finishes. I've been a little snake bitten the last few years. Yeah, that was brutal. Yeah, that was good. Really good job by Mikey. Yeah, it's been fun in fantasy this year. Coach has had good weeks and bad weeks. Little Ed, you don't check your team. That's why you're.
I'm brutal, man. I'm brutal. Yeah, I gotta make some moves. I got Kane on the IR. I got a bunch of guys that I just gotta get rid of.
I can't figure out how to bring in a player when I have a guy in IR. You won't
once
help
a week.
me.
Coach calls me and says, "How do I put a guy on IR?" And I'm like, "Dude, you click the blue button and you put him on IR."
It did change from last year because that was confusing. The app, the whole app updated, and like changing your lineup and like actually getting to your lineup is a little confusing for sure.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm just saying, for someone that doesn't use Yahoo Fantasy like all year round for every sport like you do, it took me by surprise when I logged back in for the first time in 6 months.
It takes 5 minutes to set your lineup. That's all it is. Not even.
No, I'm not. No excuse on my part. I think I'm just gonna blow the whole thing up and just pick some people off of waivers and go for.
Wait, are you open for business like Chris Drury or what?
Yeah, I'm open for business. I'm 10th overall right now. I got to make some moves. I got to do something to shake things up. Yeah, nothing's working right now, so I'm open, baby.
How about Mike calling out Nikki Blocks for not checking his team and telling him to check his trade proposals? You know there's some kind of rip-off trade proposed.
Yeah, who's the commissioner? And Mike's the commissioner. There might be some insider trading going on here. I don't know.
Insider action.
Yeah, that's funny.
Whatever. I'm going to text Nikki and say, what is the trade proposal that Mike offered you? Because I gotta know. It's probably some complete rip-off deal, but. All right, boys. Good way to end the episode on a little bit of a laugh. No trivia this week. You know, like Mikey said, the Rangers are home on Friday against Pittsburgh. This is sponsored by Sorrento's of Long Beach, like Mikey said already. And it's the Kraken on Sunday and then Chicago on Monday. So you got those flipped, Little Ed. The Kraken Sunday and the Hawks on Monday. And then they're on the road in Buffalo and then home against the Kings.
Off my game this week.
It's all right. You're under the weather. The team is off their game, so we're allowed to be off our game a little. Honestly, I texted you guys like I'm ready to quit the podcast and stop watching sports altogether. I know it's a little dramatic, but like I am really frustrated watching these games. Like I don't know about you.
Looking at it now, I fixed it on my screen and forgot to save the new version. So yep, that's on me.
It's all right, Little Ed. No worries. But I am very frustrated watching these games, and I just need the break of Rangers hockey again to be fun. And, we can tolerate the losing if they're rebuilding, if whatever, but this is a team with cup aspirations, and I just don't see it. I don't know. But hopefully they start turning around. They got a few days off here. We'll see if Drury does anything. If history repeats itself, usually when we record an episode, the day after that, the GM makes a move.
happens.
So, yeah. So I would expect some kind of movement tomorrow of some kind.
Right.
But I don't know, boys. Let's see what happens on Friday.
It's going to be interesting. Something's got to shake. Something's got to give. They need that. There's got to be something that happens that's a turning point. They need an event to happen, either a trade or something's got to happen.
Yeah, or maybe, some kind of emotional play during the game even would be, that like BS fight that Trouba had. Sure, maybe it worked for that game, but that's not a season-altering type play. It's got to be some kind of a speech or a players-only meeting or a trade or a firing or something's got to happen. That's still the wrong one. You still put the wrong one up.
I don't know what happened.
Oh man, just forget it.
I'm giving up on it. I just
Penguins,
like the Italian music.
Penguins cracking Blackhawks next 3 games, and we'll be back next week on Tuesday as well. Coach Ed will be at that Blackhawks game, get a live look at Connor Bedard. Talk about how he's a bust probably. I don't know if there's any defenseman for you to watch on the Hawks, Coach. Who's their best?
I got to say, I wanted to mention this also.
Right.
I wanted to do a cousin Ed flop. I went to the Islanders Bruins game and I watched McAvoy pretty closely. He's a sharp player.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's a sharp player. He makes right decisions in the neutral zone. He backs up. I watched him. He's a sharp player.
Oh, I forgot to mention this. I wanted to.
I'm flopping on Charlie.
So you just
I don't think he's
reminded
a
me-
Norris Trophy type of defenseman, but he's a very good player.
By mentioning McAvoy, you made me think of the Four Nations tournament, which they're announcing the rosters for tomorrow. And the Rangers have a bunch of guys who might get nominated there. And taking Trocheck and Kreider possibly for USA. I saw some rumors. Fox, obviously, Kako, Zibanejad. But it reminded me also that 3 Rangers are going to the World Juniors for Team USA. Gabe Perreault, obviously our best prospect, and 2 defensemen, Drew Fortescue and EJ Emery. EJ Emery, the famed recent first-round pick who said his idol was Keandre Miller. So hopefully it no longer is, but he'll be at the
that's
World
not
Juniors.
looking too prospectable.
Anyway, all right, boys. Have a good night. Always fun. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll be back next week. Let's go, Rangers.
Let's go
Rangers.
Keep the faith. Let's do it.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Have a good night.